Let's do it. Let's do it. Do it like this. Ba-boom. Ba-boom. Do it like that. Yeah. Ba-boom.
Okay, this is Jonathan Small again, starting off with the Small Report, July the 17th, live from downtown Hartford. Pretty much this is the third program for this particular segment, and I would say this particular Saturday I'm going to be co-hosting on a radio station program, the Henry Brown Mike Johnson's community talk show. You can go online at WRTC.com. If I'm in a position to know that I'm going to be able to do this on a day-to-day basis, I will try to make that announcement this up and coming Saturday. The program will get started at 12:15 to 1:30. Again, it's on 89.3 FM WRTC. That's for people here in Connecticut, but for people throughout the country, you can go online to WRTC.com. It's a very hot day today. That's why I'm dressed kind of casual and trying to be as light as I can. And basically, it's in the 90s today, a little bit humid, but you just got to deal with summertime. This is summertime, and everybody got to adjust to the hot weather and try to enjoy it, because in 6 months we might be talking about how cold it is. Pretty much I'm trying to give an in-depth information segment of many different issues today to try to enlighten people throughout the cities, the states, and the countries where we should be moving towards and where we are at. Basically here in Hartford, the capital city of Connecticut, we had a pretty violent week last week. We had a homicide. I guess a person was driving reportedly towards a police officer, and basically the police officer had to defend himself. He shot and killed him not that far from the downtown studios, and there was 2 other young men that was critically wounded, along with 2 other shootings. I think this is a normal trend that goes on throughout the country. I heard a report in Chicago that up until this point right now, they have 259 homicides at an all-time record, but actually not an all-time record. If you do a little research on Chicago, you'll find that in 1974, that city had 950 homicides. It's kind of hard to believe that, almost 40 years ago, before crack cocaine and the drug level at that particular stage, with guys fighting for turf, and it still was the same problem, but it's just hard for younger people and people probably in general to recall in 1974, Chicago had 950 homicides, which is actually higher than what they are on pace for this year, but it's still a devastating problem. It made world news last week on Channel 3. And basically, it's something that I think we all have to go through, trying to figure out the best way to resolve this problem. I think it's an epidemic problem, but I think at some point many people don't know how to get to the root of a problem, so it's easy to try to deal with the symptoms of the problem. Growing up in inner cities in America is probably more difficult today, but it's still not that much different than in the past. You have to give people hope. Without hope, people fall into traps. You got to have knowledge. And I think that's what's missing more today, probably for a lot of people. You follow the reports of the unemployment rate in the country. It's over 8%. Your middle class is still losing tremendous ground, and a lot of people trying to get started might find themselves having more of a difficult time today than it was in the past. So when you don't have the hope or the belief that things can actually be better or your life can actually improve, then you just fall into whatever vice or traps that you might slip into. And it's very easy to get caught up into something that might be very difficult for you to get out. Here in Connecticut, we have a proposed plan with the Bradley Development economic zone that they're trying to target 4 different areas near Bradley International Airport. Windsor Locks, where the airport is directly located at, Windsor, Suffield, and East Granby, trying to get the type of development and the type of businesses and the companies to come directly in that area to, I guess, spin off of the airport, that if you bring another segment of businesses and development and you have a lot of business travelers that's traveling through that airport, because you go throughout the country, you go to Hartford International Airport, the world's busiest airport, is a tremendous asset. I think airports are an asset that many regions can look at where the airport is directly located at. And I guess what the governor, who last year, I guess, formed, as I mentioned last week, the Connecticut Authority Department, and that department is going to try to, not try, but actually running the airport differently than what it was when the state was actually running the airport. But I think that's where the most opportunities I see could actually get started going at from this point to the remaining point of this decade. I think airports is going to always be here in this country. I think your business travelers, your tourist travelers, we're not really a tourist state. We're trying to pursue tourism, but I think we have an airport that represents pretty much New England. I think the name of the airport should eventually be changed to New England International Airport, because that could kind of, give people coming into this part of the country the view that the airport is targeting not just Connecticut, but other parts of New England. But you want to be able to see businesses, business growth, opportunities, and I think the Bradley Economic Development Zone is one step that I think people should start to look at and figure out, what can we do to try to attract a new form of growth. I think the things that's missing in that area, not just with the economic development growth that's lacking, you also don't have the type of entertainment. I mean, you do have entertainment, to a certain degree, but I think we would love to have a large scale volume of new entertainment ventures coming into that area. But I think the first piece is to get the business growth started, expanded, and then you get the people to come into that area to be homeowners, invest, in that particular segment. It don't have to be limited just to Windsor Locks, Windsor, East Granby, Suffield. It could be broadened beyond that, but obviously that's where the most development is going to be targeted at. And then I think the entertainment piece should come a little bit after, when people now have the disposable income to be able to enjoy themselves after being prosperous. And that's what the game is all about. Don't kid yourself. You got to ask yourself, in America, you're either living the American dream or you're suffering in the American nightmare. It's a kind of hard middle ground, I think, today than it was maybe 50 years ago. I mean, we've always had struggles and issues to overcome and to deal with. But just on an economic scale, basically, you have to find yourself which position of the social economic structure that you are in. And right now, to be perfectly honest, it is either living the American dream or suffering the American nightmare. I mean, I right now don't even have a car. I'm trying to get a transitionary period to get myself back where I had a car. It's a lot better feeling when you can jump into your own vehicle, move around from point A to point B. Just some maintenance issues that I had to clear up, and that's going to be resolved within a week or so. But I think people underestimate disposable income, having that extra money put aside to be able to do the type of things that you need and want to do, and not be pinching from paycheck to paycheck, struggling from one week to the next week. Many people don't understand that to the full extent. You got financial advisors who can always tell people what's the best way to invest your money. But if you don't have any money, you're not going to have much to really invest with. I mean, no financial firm is going to want to deal with somebody coming in there with $5,000 to $10,000. They would much rather deal with six figures because that's how they make their money too. So I'm not saying money is the solution to everything, but it's a big part of what we have to start to look at. The executive producer who does an excellent job putting this program, The Small Report, on, when he was running for mayor last year, he wanted to attract a conglomerate media company, Y3K Global Media. Wanted to do something a little bit unique, wanted to kind of bring a media growth with an educational piece to it, to kind of try to train and educate a lot of people that would never have the opportunity to get into the media industry. And it was proposed it was going to be about 2,500 minimum good paying positions available over a period of time. The media industry could be very lucrative, and it kind of gets into another stage what I wanted to try to target. You got to find a way to motivate and attract people, not always in the same traditional way. If you got to entice people with, hey, if you do this, you could have the type of home that you need, the type of transportation system that you need, the type of bank account that you need. We can't really always be trying to be so careful of what we're saying to people that it might not come across the right way. Because, you know, money talks. You know, this whole system that we're operating under, a capitalistic system, is designed towards, you know, having access to capital, having access to credit. And if you want to get people more motivated, somebody used to say a long time ago, you know, you always try to lead somebody or lead a person to the well, but you can't make them drink the water. Well, you make somebody thirsty enough. Actually, you make somebody dehydrated enough, they'll drink the water. It's not a complicated process. A lot of people just might be turned off because they don't see the real benefits of going towards the type of way you are advocating people to go towards. And I think in this society, you do have more than one way to get to a destination. It don't have to be the same direct pattern. This Y3K Global Media was going to get into film, television, music, manufacturing. I mean, real good paying positions from what I was told. You could be making in 1 week what it would be able to cover your whole expenses for 1 month. And obviously the project didn't go through, but the point was you have to look at a piece like that to try to bring a new form of an economy, or try to do a different form of an economy to try to see where things could go at. One of the problems that you have with the underground economy, why it's so tough to compete, is that when you take drugs and you can buy something at a low price and get a high rate of return, your basic 9-to-5 traditional job really can't fit into that particular category. I'm not by any means telling people to say, hey, it's all right to be dealing drugs, but look at the concept. If you are an entrepreneur or you have a business and you can get access to a particular product, it just so happens in the underground economy, you're talking about drugs, cocaine, heroin, crack, weed, other drugs that's, you know, been around trying to come back. But when you get a high rate of return on your investment, that's what sometimes pushes people to say that this is something that I can get into, get money coming in quickly, and I could always see the dollars coming from one segment to the next segment. Tremendous cost to life, you know, what it does to you. But I'm just saying, on a financial level, what type of product are we trying to create to people who are not always into the traditional 9-to-5 work structure that they can get access to? I mean, I see people out here selling DVD tapes, selling T-shirts, CDs, and that's good, but that's not, for many people, going to generate enough money. I've known people that actually helps people in that particular field, and sometimes you make very little money at all just to basically be able to cover your expenses. So if we want to look at entrepreneurship and try to get people to be real business people, you got to look at a particular product that you can try to find and get access to. And right now, growing up in most sectors, many people don't have access to those particular products. I really want to be able to cover these critical areas. I did mention last week I was going to try to invite somebody on to look at the suburbs versus the inner cities, the disparities, the inequities. I'd rather get the right person on before I really do that show, so you get the real in-depth concept of why inner cities and urban cities are still at the bottom, and suburbs and most affluent areas seem to be growing. Home ownership, land space, in most cases a pretty good school system, not dealing with a concentration of unemployment and underemployment. Most people got to be in a position before you can move out to your suburbs to be able to maintain that standard of living. And when you have something that's very valuable and important, you do more effort to keep what you have than to allow it to go into the deteriorated level that in many cases you see your inner cities all across this country fall into. So I think the suburbs versus the inner city concept is a gap that's going to continue to be a mile wide. It doesn't mean just because you live in inner cities that you don't have to have a good life. It don't mean that you should look down on yourself. I live in the inner cities. To say that I want to be in an inner city my entire life, probably not. Because at some point you want to move to a different level. Still want to work in the inner cities, come back into the inner cities, be part of the inner cities, but sometimes you want to get the best investment for your dollar. And in many cases, you probably can buy a home in inner cities a lot cheaper than you can in the suburbs. But what else are you getting for your return of your investment? Is you getting a good, safe community? Is you getting the type of educational attainment and opportunities that you need? Are your taxes where it needs to be at? I mean, I'm not saying the suburbs are for everybody. I'm not saying the inner cities are for everybody. It's sometimes a personal choice. But I know one thing, there's a tremendous disparity and gap that continues to be a major problem. So I'm not saying the underground economy is a good example to go towards, but look at the product though. Again, look at something that you can get access to at a low price and get a high rate of return. The Small Report is just going to continue to try to push information and educational enlightenments to people out there to look at things a little bit differently than you normally have. I want to get into some real heavy issues, but I also want at times just keep it a little balanced to cover many different segments at one particular time. I appreciate what my executive producer has been able to do. I'm the producer, the host, Jonathan Small. And until next week, if you have any questions or comments, you could always feel free to email me at jonathansmallj@gmail.com. And I'm not always up to date on getting my emails every day. Once I get my transportation systems in, and I'm going to be perfectly blunt, I want to be able to roll in a nice automobile. I made a drastic mistake 2 years ago purchasing a Nissan Maxima, which has a reputation of always causing maintenance problems. I want to say when I leave this studio, I got a nice vehicle to roll with and feel good about. And I think that's the point we need to continue to strive for. Catching the bus and walking everywhere you have to go is a necessity. It's not a luxury. It's not something I want to continue to do. I'm not saying it's anything wrong catching the bus, walking. I'm not saying it's anything wrong working. But open up your mind to the big picture that we have in this country, that we have in this society. We have the hip hop stars who can own 6 and 7 luxury vehicles. They're boasting. They're promoting that type of lifestyle. A lot of our younger people are buying into it. They're just not equipped to get it the legitimate way in many cases, and they're not going to all be hip hop stars, entertainers, professional athletes. but they do want the same resources that they see people want. And as long as you have a standard of living that America sets, you're going to always have people striving for that particular goal. So at some point, we need to open our eyes, get our heads out of the sand, and start to realize that we're going to have to do something to give people at least the opportunities to obtain what they need. A lot of people are not going on to higher education. They're not going on to college. They're not going on to business schools. Everybody doesn't want to go to the military, but you want to find some particular niche that you can find a way for a large segment of people to fit their goals and aspirations into. It might not happen through the political systems. You know, the same broken record, many politicians don't care about us. They just want to come around when it's time for their vote, and then they're gone. I don't know the magic solution to get something guaranteed, but I know you do have to work and strive for it and be persistent and never give up. And I'm a perfect example. I'm not exactly where I want to be at, but I feel I'm a lot better now just giving a voice and being in a position now to go over the internet and show people that, you know, and tell people that you got to start to do things a lot differently, look at things a lot differently, and try to move your mindset and your body in a whole different directions. Again, this up and coming Saturday, I'm going to be co-hosting on a radio station program. It's the Henry Brown, Mike Johnson show from 12:15 p.m. to 1:30. It's on WRTC.com. If I have everything straightened out by that particular time, I will be in a position to make an announcement that going into next week, I could start to do the small report live, or if not live, at least on the internet, Monday through Friday. And that way you'll have a day-to-day information segment of the small report, a little bit shorter, obviously, than what I'm saying now. And that way people will see what's going on from one day to the next day, and I'll be able to put things just like that over the air. So until the next time I see you, this is Jonathan Small reporting from downtown doing the Small Report, and I hope everybody out there have a wonderful day. Thank you.